In a crowded New York airport, millionaire Ethan Carter locks eyes with Maya Lopez, his long-lost love, cradling a girl with his unmistakable gaze, igniting a quest for truth. Their journey, woven with love, betrayal, and resilience, unfolds a gripping tale of family. Where are you tuning in from? Rate this heartfelt saga from 0 to 10 in the comments below and dive in. The New York airport thrummed with chaos, a living pulse of hurried footsteps, rolling suitcases, and garbled announcements crackling through the air. Ethan Carter stood at the edge of the terminal, his tailored coat catching the fluorescent glare, his jaw set like stone. He was a man carved from discipline, his life a ledger of deals and deadlines, every second accounted for. At 32, he commanded boardrooms with a glance, his wealth a fortress built on cold ambition. Yet, in this fleeting moment, that fortress trembled. He saw her before his mind could register the impossibility. Maya Lopez, a ghost from 3 years past, moved through the crowd with a quick, deliberate stride. Her dark hair, slightly longer now, caught the light as she clutched a small girl to her chest, the child's blue coat stark against the terminal's gray blur. Ethan's breath snagged. Maya, the woman who'd slipped from his life without a word, leaving only a jagged wound and a curt text. "I can't stay." He'd buried that pain under work, under whiskey, under the weight of his own success. But here she was, flesh and blood, her presence a blade slicing through time. The child shifted in her arms, and Ethan froze. Two clear, piercing eyes met his, eyes that mirrored his own, a rare, glacial blue that his mother once called Carter's mark. His pulse hammered, a storm breaking loose in his chest. It couldn't be. He took a step forward, the crowd parting like water around him, his voice low but sharp. "Maya." Her head snapped up, and their gazes collided. For a split second, the world stilled, her hazel eyes wide with fear, his own burning with questions. Then she turned, her steps quickening, the child's head tucked against her shoulder. "Maya!" His call was swallowed by the din, a useless echo in the terminal's roar. He pushed forward, dodging a man with a battered suitcase, sidestepping a woman shouting into her phone. His polished shoes struck the floor with purpose, his heart a war drum. She couldn't vanish again. Not now. Not with that child. Those eyes, staring back at him like a truth he hadn't dared to imagine. He scanned the crowd, his height giving him a fleeting advantage. There, a flash of her green scarf, weaving toward the escalators. He surged after her, ignoring the annoyed grunts of passengers he brushed past. The escalator hummed, carrying her downward. Ethan reached the edge, his hand gripping the railing, ready to follow. But, as he looked down, she was gone, swallowed by the sea of travelers below. His chest tightened, a knot of frustration and something deeper. Fear, maybe, or the ghost of hope. He stood there, the world moving around him, announcements blaring about delayed flights and lost luggage. His mind replayed the moment, her tense posture, the way she'd shielded the girl, the unmistakable panic in her eyes. She was running. From him. He retreated to a quieter corner of the terminal, his back against a cold glass wall. His fingers raked through his dark hair, a habit from younger, less guarded days. Maya Lopez. 3 years ago, she'd been his anchor, her quiet strength grounding his restless ambition. They'd met in a dim Brooklyn cafe, her laugh soft but unguarded, her dreams of writing books clashing with his world of numbers and power. He'd loved her for it, loved the way she saw through his armor. Then, she was gone, leaving no trace, no explanation. He'd searched for months, called every contact, scoured every lead. Nothing. As if she'd never existed. Now, this. A child. A girl. No older than 3 with his eyes. The math was merciless. 3 years since Maya vanished, the age of the child aligning too perfectly to be coincidence. Ethan's hands clenched, his mind racing through possibilities. Was she his? Had Maya known and chosen to hide her? The thought burned, a mix of betrayal and longing. He pulled out his phone, his thumb hovering over his assistant's number. He could have answers by morning, private investigators, records, anything money could buy. But something stopped him. This wasn't a deal to close or a rival to outmaneuver. This was personal. He straightened, his gaze hardening. Maya could run, but he'd find her. He always did. The child's eyes haunted him, a mirror to his own, demanding answers he wouldn't let slip away. He moved toward the exit, the terminal's chaos fading behind him. Outside, the city loomed, its lights sharp against the dusk. Ethan Carter, the man who never lost, had a new mission, not for wealth or power, but for truth. And this time, he wouldn't stop until he had it. Ethan Carter, the man who never lost, had a new mission, not for wealth or power, but for truth. And this time, he wouldn't stop until he had it. The highway stretched like a dusty vein through the heart of upstate New York, its edges frayed by wild grass and forgotten barns. Ethan's sleek black sedan cut through the dusk, a city beast out of place among the sagging fences and weathered silos. His hands gripped the wheel, knuckles pale, as the skyline of Manhattan faded in his rearview mirror. Maya's hometown lay ahead, a speck of a place called Willow Creek, where secrets clung like damp to the clapboard houses. He'd tracked her here through a scrap of memory. She'd mentioned it once, her voice soft with nostalgia, for a life simpler than his. Now it was his only lead. Willow Creek greeted him with a single blinking stoplight and a main street that looked like it hadn't changed since the 70s. The air smelled of hay and engine grease, sharp against the sterile polish of his world. He parked outside a diner, its neon sign flickering open in tired red letters. Inside, locals nursed coffees, their eyes sliding over him, a stranger in a coat too fine for these parts. He asked about Maya, showing an old photo on his phone, her smile frozen from better days. The waitress, her name tag reading Doris, squinted and shook her head. "Ain't seen her in years," she said, her voice gravelly from too many cigarettes. But her glance darted to the side, a tell Ethan didn't miss. He left a 20 on the counter and kept moving. The town was small, but Maya was a shadow. He checked the post office, the gas station, the library with its sagging shelves. Nothing. His frustration coiled tighter, a spring ready to snap. By noon, he stood outside a bookstore tucked between a hardware store and a vacant lot, its sign reading "Creek Reads" in chipped paint. The bell above the door jangled as he entered, the scent of old paper and dust hitting him like a memory. Shelves loomed, stuffed with tattered novels and yellowed maps. And there she was, Maya, behind the counter, her fingers pausing over a stack of books. She wore a faded sweater, her hair pulled back, but her eyes were the same, sharp and guarded. She froze when she saw him, her hand tightening on a paperback. "Ethan," she said, her voice low, like she'd been caught stealing. "What are you doing here?" "I could ask you the same." He stepped closer, the floor creaking under his weight. The shop was empty, save for the hum of a fan in the corner. "You ran. Again." Her jaw tightened, but she didn't look away. "I don't owe you answers." "Don't you?" His voice was steel, but his chest ached. "That girl at the airport, those eyes. Maya, don't lie to me." She flinched, her gaze darting to the door, as if expecting someone to burst through. "You need to leave, Ethan. This isn't your place." He leaned on the counter, closing the distance. "I'm not going anywhere. Not until you tell me the truth." Before she could answer, a small voice piped up from behind a shelf. "Mama, I found it!" A girl, Sofia, bounded out, clutching a picture book with a grinning dog on the cover. Her dark curls bounced, but it was her eyes that stopped Ethan cold. Blue, piercing, undeniable. She looked up at him, curious but unafraid. "Who's he?" Maya's face drained of color. "Just someone I know, sweetheart. Go read in the back." Her voice was steady, but her hands trembled as she ushered Sofia away. Ethan watched, his pulse a dull roar. The girl's features were a mirror, his nose, his sharp cheekbones. He didn't need a test to know. When Maya returned, her eyes were hard. "Don't do this here," she whispered. "Not in front of her." "Then when?" he shot back, keeping his voice low. "You've had 3 years to tell me. I'm done waiting." She crossed her arms, a wall between them. "You don't get to walk in and demand things, Ethan. You don't know what I've been through." "And whose fault is that?" His words cut, but he didn't care. "You left. No note, no call. Just gone. And now there's a kid who looks like me. Explain that." Her lips parted, but no words came. The bell jangled again, a customer shuffling in, breaking the tension. Maya turned away, busying herself with the counter. "I have work to do," she said, her voice flat. "Go." Ethan's hands clenched, but he didn't move. He'd come too far to be dismissed. "This isn't over," he said, his tone a promise. He stepped outside, the bells chime mocking him. The street was quiet, the sun dipping low, casting long shadows. He found a rental office 2 blocks down and signed for a small house on the edge of town, a squat place with peeling paint and a creaking porch. He wasn't leaving Willow Creek, not yet. Maya could hide, but he'd wait her out. Those eyes, Sofia's eyes, were a truth he wouldn't let slip through his fingers again. Maya could hide, but he'd wait her out. Those eyes, Sofia's eyes, were a truth he wouldn't let slip through his fingers again. The Willow Creek sun hung low, painting the sky in bruises of orange and purple. Ethan leaned against the warped porch railing of his rented house, the wood creaking under his weight. The town was quiet, save for the distant bark of a dog and the hum of cicadas. He'd spent 3 days prowling its edges, asking questions that met tight lips or vague shrugs. Maya was a fortress, and Willow Creek her loyal guard. But Ethan Carter didn't break easily. He sipped his coffee, black and bitter, watching the street where kids rode bikes in lazy circles. His mind churned, piecing together a plan. He'd get answers, even if he had to chip away at her walls, one crack at a time. By chance or fate, opportunity knocked that afternoon. Ethan was at the town's only grocery store, grabbing essentials, when he saw Maya's green scarf through the window. She was across the street, struggling with a bag of books, Sofia tugging at her hand. The girl's laughter carried, sharp and bright, cutting through the heavy air. Ethan didn't think. He dropped his basket and crossed the street, his boots kicking up dust. "Need a hand?" he asked, voice steady, but eyes locked on hers. Maya stiffened, her grip tightening on Sofia's hand. "We're fine," she said, but the bag slipped, spilling paperbacks onto the cracked sidewalk. Sofia giggled, darting to grab one. Ethan knelt, picking up a worn copy of Charlotte's Web, his fingers brushing the faded cover. "Looks like you've got a reader," he said, glancing at Sofia, who beamed. "She loves dogs," Maya muttered, snatching the book from him. Her voice was clipped, but her eyes flickered with something softer. Exhaustion, maybe, or resignation. "Let me carry these," Ethan said, not asking. He hoisted the bag before she could protest, his arm brushing hers. She flinched, but didn't pull away. They walked toward her beat-up sedan, Sofia skipping ahead, singing about a puppy in her book. Ethan's chest tightened. The girl's energy was a spark, her curls bouncing like Maya's used to in their Brooklyn days. He pushed the thought down, focusing on the moment. "You work at the bookstore full-time?" he asked, keeping his tone light. Part-time, Maya said, unlocking the car. It's enough. Her words were a wall, but Ethan heard the strain beneath them. Life here wasn't easy. Not for a single mother in a town this small. Sofia spun around, her blue eyes catching his. "You got a dog, mister?" she asked, tilting her head. Ethan's lips twitched, a rare crack in his armor. "Not yet, kid. You recommending one?" "Yeah," Sofia grinned, oblivious to the tension. "A big one, like in my book." She held up the dog-eared paperback, her enthusiasm a knife in Ethan's gut. She was his, he was sure of it, but Maya's silence was a locked gate. At the car, Maya took the bag from him, her fingers brushing his. She froze for a split second, then busied herself loading the trunk. "Sofia, get in," she said, her voice tight. The girl obeyed, climbing into the back seat, still chattering about dogs. Ethan leaned against the car, blocking Maya's escape. "We need to talk," he said, low enough for Sofia not to hear. "There's nothing to say," Maya shot back, slamming the trunk. Her eyes were fire, but her hands shook. "You can't just show up and—" "And what?" Ethan cut in, stepping closer. "Pretend I didn't see her? Pretend she doesn't have my eyes, my face?" His voice was a low growl, raw with the weight of 3 years lost. "You owe me the truth, Maya." Her lips parted, but no words came. Sofia's voice broke the silence, calling for her mom from the car. Maya glanced back, then at Ethan, her expression a storm of fear and defiance. "Not here," she whispered. "Not now." "Then when?" he pressed, his patience fraying. "I'm not leaving, Maya. Not until I know." She held his gaze, her breath uneven. "You don't get to decide that," she said, but her voice cracked, betraying her. She slid into the driver's seat, shutting the door with a thud. Ethan stepped back as the engine sputtered to life, the car pulling away in a cloud of dust. He stood there, the street empty now, Sofia's laughter echoing in his mind. That night, he sat on the porch, the air thick with the scent of pine and earth. His phone lay untouched. No calls to his city contacts, no investigators. This wasn't a deal to be closed with money. It was raw, personal, a wound that wouldn't heal without answers. Sofia's face, his face, burned behind his eyes. Maya's walls were high, but he'd find a way through. He always did. Maya's walls were high, but he'd find a way through. He always did. The Willow Creek dusk settled heavy, wrapping the town in a hush, broken only by the creak of Ethan's porch chair. A week had passed since the grocery store encounter, and Sofia's laughter still echoed in his skull, her blue eyes a relentless ghost. He'd kept his distance, watching Maya's routine, mornings at the bookstore, afternoons with Sofia at the park. But he wasn't here to play spectator. Tonight, he'd push harder. He drove to her small, clapboard house, its paint peeling like old skin, and knocked. The door cracked open, Maya's silhouette sharp against the dim light inside. Her eyes narrowed, wary as a cornered fox. "Ethan, it's late," she said, her voice low, glancing back as if Sofia might hear. "What do you want?" "Answers," he replied, stepping forward, his shadow spilling into her doorway. "No more games, Maya, I know she's mine." Her face tightened, a storm brewing in her gaze. She hesitated, then swung the door wider. "Fine. Come in. But keep it down, Sofia's asleep." The living room was sparse, a sagging couch and a coffee table littered with crayons. A single lamp cast long shadows, making the space feel like a confession booth. Ethan stood, hands in his pockets, his city polish clashing with the room's worn edges. Maya crossed her arms, leaning against the wall. "You don't get to barge in and demand things," she said, her voice a blade. "You don't know what it's been like." "Then tell me," Ethan shot back, his tone steady but laced with fire. 3 years, Maya. You vanished, and now there's a kid with my eyes. You don't get to keep that from me." Her breath hitched, and she looked away, her fingers digging into her arms. The silence stretched, thick as the summer air. Finally, she spoke, her voice barely above a whisper. "Sofia's yours, Ethan. She's your daughter." The words hit like a fist to his chest, stealing his air. He'd known deep down, but hearing it was different, raw, real, a truth that reshaped his world. He stepped closer, his voice low. "Why didn't you tell me? Why'd you run?" Maya's eyes flicked to his, glistening with unshed tears. "You think I wanted to? You think I just walked away because I felt like it?" She shook her head, her voice cracking. "Your father, Charles, he came to me. Right after I found out I was pregnant." Ethan froze, his blood turning to ice. Charles, his adoptive father, the man who'd raised him with iron rules and colder ambition, was a shadow he'd never escaped. "What did he do?" Maya's hands trembled as she spoke, her words tumbling out like stones down a hill. "He showed up at my apartment, all polished and calm, like he was closing a deal. Said I'd ruin you, your career, your name, everything. Said a girl like me with no money, no family, would drag you down." She swallowed hard, her voice breaking. "He told me you'd resent me, resent her, that you'd never choose us over your empire." Ethan's jaw clenched, his fists balling at his sides. "And you believed him?" "I was scared, Ethan," she snapped, her voice rising before she caught herself, glancing toward Sofia's room. "I was 23, pregnant, alone. He said he'd make sure you lost everything if I stayed. I thought I was protecting you." "Protecting me?" His laugh was bitter, sharp as barbed wire. "You let him drive you out. You let him steal 3 years of my life with her." His voice shook, rage and hurt colliding. "You should have come to me, Maya. I would have fought for you." Her eyes flashed with defiance, but her shoulders sagged. "I tried. I called you once, but he answered your phone. Said you were done with me, that you'd moved on." She looked down, her voice softening. "I believed him. I was young, stupid, broken, so I left." Ethan's mind reeled, the betrayal slicing deeper than he'd expected. Charles, the man who'd molded him into a machine of ambition, had orchestrated this. He'd stolen his family. "He lied," Ethan said, his voice low, dangerous. "I never moved on. I looked for you for months." Maya's gaze met his, a mix of guilt and pain. "I know that now," she whispered. "But back then I was just lost." The room felt smaller, the air heavy with their shared wounds. Ethan's anger churned, but beneath it was something else. Grief for the years stolen, for the love they'd buried. "You should have trusted me," he said, softer now, but the hurt lingered. "I didn't know how," Maya admitted, her voice raw. "I still don't." He stepped closer, close enough to see the faint lines of exhaustion on her face, the weight she'd carried alone. "Then we figure it out," he said, his tone firm but not unkind. "Because I'm not walking away from her. Or you." Maya's eyes searched his, fear and hope tangled together. Before she could respond, a soft creak came from the hallway. Sofia stood there, rubbing her eyes, clutching a stuffed rabbit. "Mama?" she mumbled. Maya rushed to her, scooping her up. "It's okay, sweetheart. Back to bed." She shot Ethan a look, part warning, part plea, and carried Sofia away. Ethan stood alone, the truth sinking into his bones. Sofia was his. Charles had betrayed him, and Maya, despite everything, still held a piece of his soul. He wouldn't let her run again. Ethan stood alone, the truth sinking into his bones. Sofia was his. Charles had betrayed him, and Maya, despite everything, still held a piece of his soul. He wouldn't let her run again. The Willow Creek morning broke sharp and cool, the kind of air that stung the lungs and woke the senses. Ethan, sat on the edge of his rented porch, the paint flaking under his boots, watching the town stir. A week had passed since Maya's confession, and the weight of it hadn't lifted. It had settled deeper, like gravel in his boots. He'd seen Sofia twice since, brief moments at the park where Maya allowed him near, her eyes always watching, guarded as a hawk. But those moments with Sofia, her chatter about dogs, her small hand grabbing his to point at a butterfly, cracked something in him. The cold CEO was thawing, and it scared him as much as it drove him. Today, he'd try again. Maya had agreed to let him join them at the town's weekly market, a grudging concession after he'd shown up daily, persistent but not pushy. He pulled on a flannel shirt, trading city polish for something that wouldn't draw stares, and drove to the market square. Stalls lined the dusty street, piled with apples, homemade jams, and stacks of quilted blankets. The air smelled of cider and leather, voices haggling under the clatter of a distant tractor. Maya stood by a vegetable stand, Sofia perched on her hip, pointing at a crate of pumpkins. Ethan approached, his steps deliberate, feeling the weight of her gaze before she turned. "You're early," Maya said, her tone flat but not hostile. She wore a faded denim jacket, her hair loose, catching the morning light. Sofia squirmed, her blue eyes locking on Ethan. "It's the dog man!" she squealed, reaching out. Ethan's lips twitched, a rare warmth spreading in his chest. "Hey, kid," he said, taking her small hand. "No dogs today, but I bet we can find something cool." Maya's eyes softened for a flicker, then hardened again, like she was fighting herself. They moved through the market, Sofia leading the way, her energy a spark in the morning chill. Ethan carried her when she tired, her weight unfamiliar but right, her chatter filling the silence between him and Maya. At a stall selling wooden toys, Sofia grabbed a carved horse, holding it up with a grin. "Look, Mama, it's fast!" Ethan knelt beside her, asking about the horse's name, her answers tumbling out in a rush. Maya watched, her arms crossed but the tension in her shoulders eased, just a fraction. As they walked, their hands brushed once, twice when passing Sofia's toys or a bag of apples. Each touch was a jolt, a reminder of nights in Brooklyn when their fingers had intertwined without thought. Ethan caught Maya's glance, her hazel eyes flickering with something, memory, maybe, or regret. "You don't have to do this," she said quietly, when Sofia ran ahead to a candy stall. "Play Dad for a day." "I'm not playing," Ethan replied, his voice low, steady as the earth under their feet. "She's mine, Maya, and I'm here for good." Her lips pressed tight, doubt carving lines in her face. "You say that now. But your life, it's not this town, not us." He stepped closer, his shadow falling over her. "My life's whatever I make it. You don't get to decide that for me anymore." She looked away, her breath uneven, but didn't argue. They kept moving, Sofia pulling them along, her laughter a tether binding them. At a picnic table under an oak, they sat with cider and cornbread, Sofia scribbling on a napkin with a borrowed crayon. Ethan watched Maya when she wasn't looking, seeing the girl he'd loved in the way she tucked her hair behind her ear, the mother she'd become in the way she wiped Sofia's hands. His anger from the confession hadn't faded, but it was tangled now with something else, understanding maybe, or the ache of what they'd lost. "You're good with her," Maya said suddenly, her voice soft, like she hadn't meant to speak. "She likes you." Ethan met her gaze, searching for the trap. "She's easy to like," he said. "Takes after her mom." Maya's cheeks flushed, and she looked down, breaking the moment. But it lingered, a crack in her armor. As the sun climbed, they walked back to her car, Sofia dozing against Ethan's shoulder. He felt her weight, her small breaths, and something fierce stirred in him. A need to protect, to claim what was his. Maya watched, her expression unreadable, but her silence wasn't cold anymore. It was heavy, like she was carrying the same weight. At her car, Ethan set Sofia in her seat, careful not to wake her. Maya stood close, their arms brushing again. This time, neither pulled away. "We need to talk about what's next," he said, his voice firm but not harsh. "No more hiding." Maya nodded just once, her eyes on Sofia. "Not here," she said, echoing their last fight, but softer now, like she was tired of running. "Tomorrow. My place." Ethan held her gaze, the market's noise fading around them. "I'll be there," he said, a promise carved in stone. As she drove off, the dust settling in her wake, he felt the ground shift beneath him. They weren't whole, not yet, but the pieces were starting to fit. They weren't whole, not yet, but the pieces were starting to fit. The Willow Creek dawn was a thin gray veil, the kind that promised rain but held back, leaving the air taut with threat. Ethan stood in Maya's cramped living room, the scent of coffee and old wood grounding him as he faced her. Last night's promise, to talk, to plan, hung between them, but the weight of it felt heavier now. Sofia was at preschool, her absence a quiet ache in the room. Maya stood by the window, her arms crossed, her denim jacket slung over a chair like a shed skin. "So, what's next?" she asked, her voice steady, but her eyes searching his, wary of the answer. Ethan opened his mouth to reply, but his phone buzzed, sharp and insistent. He glanced at the screen. An unknown number, but the area code was Manhattan, his old battleground. His gut twisted. "Hold that thought," he said, stepping outside to the porch, where the air smelled of damp earth and pine. He answered, his voice clipped. "Carter." "Mr. Carter," came a polished voice, smooth as a city lawyer's handshake. "This is James Hargrove, representing Charles Carter. I'm calling about your daughter, Sofia." Ethan's blood ran cold, his grip tightening on the phone. "What about her?" Hargrove's tone stayed calm, but the words were ablaid. "Mr. Carter has filed for custody, citing concerns about the child's welfare under her current circumstances. He believes you and Ms. Lopez are unfit." The world tilted. Ethan's vision narrowed, the porch railing under his hand suddenly the only thing keeping him upright. "Unfit?" he growled, his voice low, dangerous. "On what grounds?" "Financial instability, questionable living conditions, and your absence from the child's life," Hargrove said, each word measured, like he was reading a script. "A hearing's been scheduled. You'll receive papers soon." Ethan hung up without a word, his pulse a war drum. Charles, the man who'd raised him, who'd shaped him with iron and ambition, had struck again. Not content with driving Maya away, he now wanted Sofia, his daughter, his blood. Ethan stormed back inside, his boots heavy on the creaking floor. Maya turned, her eyes narrowing at his expression. "What's wrong?" He didn't soften the blow. "Charles is suing for custody of Sofia. Says we're unfit." Maya's face drained of color, her hand gripping the windowsill. "No," she whispered, her voice breaking like dry twigs. "He can't. She's ours." "He's trying," Ethan said, his jaw tight. "But he won't win." Her eyes flashed, fear turning to fury. "He's got money, Ethan. Lawyers. Power. We're nothing to him." She paced, her hands trembling. "I knew he'd come for us. I knew it." Ethan grabbed her shoulders, forcing her to stop. "Look at me," he said, his voice steady despite the storm inside. "He's not taking her. I'll fight him with everything I've got." Maya's gaze met his, her breath uneven. "You don't know what he's capable of." "I do," Ethan said, his voice hard as flint. "And I'm not the kid he raised anymore." The next days were a blur of dust and desperation. Ethan called in favors, reaching out to his own lawyers in the city, sharp minds who'd helped him close billion-dollar deals. They dug into Charles's case, finding holes, but warning him. The man had influence, connections that ran deep as oil wells. Maya met with a local attorney, a grizzled woman named Clara, who knew the town's legal ropes, but admitted they were outgunned. "We need evidence," Clara said, her voice rough as gravel. "Proof Sofia's thriving here. School records, doctor's notes, anything." Maya threw herself into it, gathering papers, her hands steady, but her eyes haunted. Ethan watched her, seeing the mother who'd fought alone for years, now fighting for their daughter's future. He wasn't used to this, needing someone, leaning on them. But every time their eyes met, he felt it. A partnership, fragile but real. One evening, as rain finally broke over Willow Creek, tapping the roof like a restless finger, Ethan found Maya at her kitchen table, surrounded by documents. Sofia slept upstairs, her stuffed rabbit tucked under her arm. Maya's hair was messy, her fingers stained with ink. "I can't lose her," she said, not looking up. Not to him. "You won't," Ethan said, sitting across from her. He reached for her hand, and this time she didn't pull away. Her fingers were cold, but they curled into his, a quiet surrender. "We're in this together," he said, his voice low, like a vow made in the dark. She nodded, her eyes glistening but fierce. "Together," she echoed, and for the first time, Ethan believed they could win, not just against Charles, but for the family they were rebuilding, piece by jagged piece. She nodded, her eyes glistening but fierce. "Together," she echoed, and for the first time, Ethan believed they could win, not just against Charles, but for the family they were rebuilding, piece by jagged piece. The Willow Creek courthouse loomed like an old oak, its stone facade weathered but unyielding, a relic of a town that clung to its roots. Inside, the air was stale, heavy with the scent of polished wood and nervous sweat. Ethan sat beside Maya in the front row, his suit a stark contrast to the worn benches, his jaw set like a man facing a storm. Maya's hands twisted in her lap, her faded dress neat but plain, her eyes fixed on the empty judge's stand. The clock on the wall ticked, each second a hammer strike. Today, Charles Carter's custody claim would face them head-on, and the stakes were Sofia, her laughter, her blue eyes, her future. The courtroom filled slowly, a murmur of locals and lawyers, their whispers buzzing like flies. Charles entered last, his silver hair immaculate, his tailored suit screaming wealth. He didn't look at Ethan or Maya, his gaze cold and forward, as if they were beneath his notice. Ethan's blood simmered, but he kept his face stone, his hand brushing Maya's for a fleeting second. She didn't pull away, her fingers trembling but steadying under his touch. The judge, a wiry woman with sharp eyes and a no-nonsense braid, called the session to order. Charles's lawyer, Hargrove, stood first, his voice smooth as oil, painting a picture of neglect. Maya's modest income, her small house, Ethan's absence from Sofia's life. "The child deserves stability," Hargrove said, gesturing to Charles, who sat like a king. "Mr. Carter can provide a life of opportunity, education, security." Ethan's lawyer, a city shark named Reynolds, countered with precision. He presented Sofia's school records, glowing reports from her teachers, medical files showing a healthy, happy child. "Ms. Lopez has raised Sofia admirably under challenging circumstances," Reynolds said, his voice cutting through the room. "And Mr. Carter, Ethan, has committed to his daughter's life, a fact no one can dispute." He slid a glance at Charles, who remained impassive, his fingers steepled. Maya took the stand next, her steps hesitant, but her chin high. Under Hargrove's questioning, she answered with quiet steel, describing Sofia's routines, her love for books, her joy in the park. But Hargrove pressed, his tone sharp. "Can you provide the resources a child of Carter lineage deserves, Ms. Lopez?" Maya's eyes flashed, but her voice stayed even. I give her love. That's more than money can buy. Ethan watched, his chest tight, pride and fear warring within him. When it was his turn, he stood, his boots heavy on the floor, and faced the room. Hargrove's questions were relentless, probing his past absence, his city life, his fitness as a father. Ethan didn't flinch. I didn't know about Sofia until weeks ago, he said, his voice low, steady as a riverbed. But I'm here now. I'm her father and I'll fight for her until my last breath. His eyes locked on Charles, a challenge, unspoken but clear. The room held its breath when Charles took the stand. He spoke with calm authority, painting himself as a savior, a man offering Sofia a future free from struggle. My son, he said, glancing at Ethan, has potential, but his choices have been reckless. The child needs guidance, not uncertainty. Ethan's fists clenched, the betrayal a fresh wound. Charles's words were a calculated strike, dismissing Maya as a footnote, Ethan as a failure. But Reynolds was ready. He produced a document, its edges crisp, and handed it to the judge. This is a signed affidavit from Ms. Lopez, detailing Charles Carter's interference 3 years ago, threatening her to leave Ethan and conceal Sofia's existence. A murmur rippled through the courtroom. Charles's face didn't change, but his eyes narrowed, a crack in his armor. This isn't about Sofia's welfare, Reynolds continued, his voice rising. It's about control. The judge's gavel fell, calling for order. She leaned forward, her gaze sweeping the room. This court prioritizes the child's best interests, she said, her voice sharp as a blade. I see a mother who's fought alone and a father stepping up. I see no evidence of neglect. She turned to Charles. Your claim lacks merit, Mr. Carter. Case dismissed. Maya gasped, her hand finding Ethan's, gripping tight. Charles stood, his face a mask, and walked out without a word, his lawyer trailing like a shadow. The courtroom emptied, but Ethan and Maya stayed, their hands still clasped, the weight of victory sinking in. Outside, the rain had stopped, the sky clearing over Willow Creek. They'd won, for now. But Ethan knew Charles, and men like him didn't retreat. Not forever. They'd won, for now. But Ethan knew Charles, and men like him didn't retreat. Not forever. The Willow Creek summer unfurled slow and golden, the fields beyond town shimmering under a relentless sun. Ethan stood at the edge of the park, his boots sinking into the soft earth, watching Sofia dart across the grass. Her laughter rang out, sharp and free, as she chased a butterfly, her dark curls bouncing. A month had passed since the courtroom victory, and the air felt lighter. Though a shadow lingered, Charles's silence was too quiet, like a storm gathering on the horizon. Ethan pushed the thought aside, his eyes on Sofia, her joy a tether, grounding him to this new life. Maya sat on a weathered bench nearby, her denim skirt catching the breeze, her gaze softer than it had been in weeks. The fight had changed her, stripped away some of her walls, though she still held herself like a woman braced for impact. Ethan joined her, the bench creaking under his weight. She's fast, he said, nodding toward Sofia, who now spun in circles, arms wide like wings. Too fast, Maya replied, a faint smile breaking through. Keeps me on my toes. Her voice was lighter, but her fingers twisted a blade of grass, betraying her unease. Ethan noticed, his instinct to push for answers was tempered by the fragile trust they'd built. He leaned back, the sun warm on his face. I'm thinking of staying, he said, his tone casual but deliberate. Not just for visits, for good. Maya's head snapped toward him, her hazel eyes wide. Here, in Willow Creek? Her voice held a mix of disbelief and something softer, hope, maybe, or fear. Your life's in the city, Ethan. Boardrooms, deals. This place'll bore you to death." He met her gaze, steady as the oak shading them. "My life's where Sofia is. Where are you?" The words landed heavier than he meant, but he didn't take them back. Maya looked away, her fingers stilling on the grass, her breath catching. "Don't say things you can't mean," she said, her voice low, like she was guarding a wound. "You don't know what this life is. The quiet, the struggle, it's not your world." Ethan's jaw tightened, but he kept his tone even. "I'm not the man I was, Maya. I'm learning this one." He gestured to the park, the kids shouting, the distant hum of a lawnmower. "For her, for us." She didn't answer, her eyes on Sofia, who now knelt in the dirt, stacking stones into a wobbly tower. The silence stretched, not tense but heavy, like the air before rain. Ethan felt it, the pull of their past, the weight of their future. He'd spent weeks proving himself, picking Sofia up from preschool, fixing the leak in Maya's porch roof, sharing quiet evenings over coffee. Each moment was a brick laid in a foundation, neither fully trusted yet. Sofia ran over, her hands smeared with dirt, a grin splitting her face. "Look, Daddy, I made a castle." The word, Daddy, hit Ethan like a gust, raw and real. He knelt, inspecting her pile of stones with mock seriousness. "That's a fortress, kid, strong as you are." Maya watched, her expression unreadable, but her eyes softened, the lines of worry easing. "She's been calling you that all week," she said quietly, when Sofia ran off again. "I didn't teach her. She just decided." Ethan's chest tightened, a warmth spreading he couldn't name. "Good," he said, his voice rough. "I want her to." He looked at Maya, catching the flicker of vulnerability in her gaze. "I want you to trust it too." Her lips parted, but no words came. She stood, brushing dirt from her skirt, and walked to Sofia, who was now chasing a grasshopper. Ethan followed, his steps slow, giving her space. At the park's edge, Sofia tripped, scraping her knee. Maya was there in a flash, scooping her up, murmuring comfort. Ethan knelt beside them, offering a bandana from his pocket. "You're tough, kid," he said, as Maya tied it around Sofia's knee. Their hands brushed, and this time, Maya didn't pull away. As the sun dipped, casting long shadows across the grass, they walked to Maya's car. Sofia clung to Ethan's hand, her chatter filling the quiet. Maya glanced at him, her eyes holding his longer than usual. "You mean it," she said, not a question, but a realization. "Staying?" "I do," he said, his voice firm, like a vow carved in stone. "I lost you once, Maya. I won't lose this." She nodded, her gaze dropping to Sofia, then back to him. "Okay," she whispered, the words small but heavy, a door cracking open. They weren't whole, not yet, but as Sofia's hand swung between theirs, Ethan felt the shape of a family taking root, fragile but fierce, in the heart of Willow Creek. Ethan and Maya's journey through betrayal, resilience, and the fight for family leaves us with a powerful reminder of love's enduring strength. What did you think of their story? Did it move you, surprise you, or spark hope? Share your thoughts and rate this tale from 0 to 10 in the comments. And let us know where you're joining us from. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you soon for another gripping story.